after the interim Finance Minister Piyush Goyal announced the budget for this year, there has, of course, been a lot of reactions, including from the opposition. Members of the opposition calling the budget announcement unethical because it was an interim budget and it shouldn't have included the kind of announcements that it did. Joining me right now on Mirror Now is P. Chidambaram, former Finance Minister and a member of the Congress Party. Mr. Chidambaram, thank you for joining us. My first question to you is based on the criticism that your party has actually announced since the budget. Do you believe that the announcements that were made yesterday had no place in the interim budget?
Yes. The interim budget was not the place to make changes in the Income Tax Act or to announce grand schemes with or without funding. The interim budget was intended to be a vote on account for 4 months, which means the status quo will continue for 4 months. But they have converted to a full-fledged election budget accompanied by a campaign speech. I can understand their desperation, but because the BJP is desperate, it cannot exceed its constitutional authority, nor can it be allowed to break time-honored conventions and practices.
BJP, in response to your criticism, has said quite clearly that back in 2014, when you were Finance Minister, in your interim budget, in fact, you made tweaks to tax rates as well. So how is this different?
No, go back and see. If I recall right, we made changes in the excise duty for automobiles and capital goods, and I made it clear it will be valid only for 4 months. And the new government will be free to restore the old duties or impose different rates. I can't recall any amendment like the one they have made to the Income Tax Act. Not one amendment, several amendments to the Income Tax Act concerning rental income, capital gains, TDS, income tax rates for the lowest slab, rebates. I can't imagine anyone has done such extensive amendments to an Income Tax Act. Such extensive amendments are only done in a regular budget.
But if you consider the fact that there is no legal or constitutional provision preventing the current government from doing what they did, so again, how is it wrong?
So what about the conventions that have been built over 70 years? You'll throw them to the wind. The point is, a government is elected for 5 years. It can govern for a period of 5 years. The 5 financial years end on 31st of March 2019. The 1.5 months thereafter, before the next government comes in, is the election period, governed by the election code. Therefore, you are entitled to lay down the tax laws for 5 years and no more. But here, you have made sweeping changes to the Income Tax Act and many other laws that will have an effect for the whole year.
Mr. Goyal did say...
Has anyone done anything like that before?
But Mr. Goyal did say that all of the announcements he was making were proposals that will need to be ratified or accepted by the new government. So isn't that an ethical thing to say?
Obviously, a new government can come and repeal these amendments, but how clumsy it becomes. Suppose, I'm just saying for sake of argument, the new government decides that the relief to the middle class should not be through tax rebate, but through altering the tax slabs. Now, both are permissible routes. So the new government would have to first annul these amendments and then make fresh amendments. Isn't that clumsy? Is that the way to deal with important law like the income tax law?
But then again, Mr. Chidambaram, if we look at the specific announcements, and let's talk first about the pension for the unorganized sector. Social security is something that India has needed for a very long time. You yourself, when you were finance minister, noted that social security and retirement planning is what most Indians need and don't have. Isn't this a good idea at this point? And do you believe it can be executed successfully?
It's a jumla. You have provided 500 crore rupees and say we're going to cover a massive number. What is the number? Something like 30 crore people. Now, there was a pension scheme announced 2 years ago. I've not got into the details yet. I've not had time. I believe that scheme is put an end to, and this scheme has been announced now. So you announce one scheme with great fanfare and maybe a couple of paragraphs in the budget speech, and then junk that scheme and announce a new scheme. And this is hopelessly underfunded. This is exactly what we said last year about the crop insurance scheme, about the Ayushman Bharat. You announce these grand schemes covering millions and millions of people, and they don't fund them.
Well, if we talk about then the 6,000 rupees that will be given to farmers every year and that new scheme that has been announced, how is this different from your minimum income guarantee that the Congress Party's president announced about a week ago? And wasn't that fundamentally preemptive of this announcement?
Not at all. Not at all. This is chalk and cheese. Don't even compare the minimum income guarantee scheme announced by the Congress president with this measly Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman. Just look at this. 6,000 rupees in 3 installments of 2,000 rupees each to each farmer family, whether the farmer family has half an acre or 1 acre or 2 acres or 4 acres. It works out to 17 rupees per day per family. If a family has 3 or 4 members, it works out to 3 to 4 rupees per member per day. What kind of a relief is this? Besides, there has been massive increase in the price of fertilizer, in the price of seeds, in the price of other inputs, in electricity and diesel charges, and harvesting charges. The farm labor cost has also gone up, and there's one calculation I saw that you have taken away 24,000 rupees on an average from a farmer, a small farmer, and you're returning to him 6,000 rupees. This is so measly that I think the farmers have already begun to say, and I saw that on the social media and on some television channels, they're asking, what is this crumbs that are being thrown at us? Our minimum income guarantee is to raise the minimum level of income of all poor families, farm and non-farm, urban and rural. So don't even compare the minimum income guarantee program, which is an adaptation of the UBI, with the scheme announced yesterday.
But Mr. Chidambaram, to be fair, we don't have the details of your minimum income guarantee scheme. They're not ready, they haven't been announced yet. And so comparing it would be difficult, or analyzing it would be difficult. When would the details of your minimum guarantee scheme be available for us to analyze?
The contours will be outlined in the manifesto. The details, when, I hope you are true, we come to government.
I also wanted to ask you about the Statistics Commission, the NSO, the 2 resignations, and then the Niti Aayog saying that the report that was submitted by the NSO was not approved by government. As former finance minister, what is your response to that?
It's a scandal. NSO results are not approved by the cabinet. CSO numbers are not approved by the cabinet. When the CSO put out quarterly figures, I got the quarterly growth rate half an hour before it was released at about 5 or 5:30. And I got the full report only when it was available to everybody else. It was put up on the website. To suggest, as the 2 Niti Aayog members have suggested, that the NSSO data has to be approved by the cabinet is outrageous. Will data produced by an expert body have to be approved by the cabinet? That shows the mindset of this government, that they will release data which they think is favorable and suppress data which is not, which is why they are suppressing the employment data. And they tinkered with the CSO data. Nobody attaches any credibility to the numbers put out by this government anymore.
Which also brings me to the tweet you had put out on GDP numbers. The GDP revised data tells us that in the year of demonetization, which was 2016-17, our revised growth stands now at 8.2%, which is remarkably high. What is your reaction to that revised number?
I have now become a great fan and supporter of demonetization. The year of demonetization, with a good 4 months and 23 days after demonetization, turned out to be the year of the highest growth under the Mr. Narendra Modi government. Therefore, I am now advocating that the government does another round of demonetization, because growth will be even higher, and this time we demonetize 100 rupee notes.
I must remind our viewers that that was sarcasm, but I do want to ask you this. Do you believe that India runs the risk right now of losing credibility to the global markets by tinkering with its own numbers?
We have lost credibility. Yesterday's numbers on fiscal deficit, bad as they are not credible either. There is a report today that the fiscal deficit has been understated by 0.3%. Already the bond markets, the bond rates have hardened at 7.62 or so. I don't think there is any credibility put out to the numbers put out by this government. Even Dr. Geeta Gopinath commented on that.
Well, Mr. Chidambaram, if we could just speak about politics right now, and if you would put on your hat as a politician, do you believe that this budget, and it's being said is a budget for everyone, there's something for everyone, people are happy with the announcements, will it change, in your opinion, the electoral fortunes of the BJP?
I can't imagine all Indians are happy. Tell me, this budget mentioned nothing about jobs. There was no paragraph about jobs and job creation. Secondly, they have a 10-dimensional vision, nothing about education. They had a paragraph, a dimension on healthcare, but nothing about education. If you treat with such contempt children, for whom education is important, and jobs for whom youth which is important for youth, how do you say all the people are happy? I think already voices are being heard by farmers that crumbs have been thrown at them. The youth are very, very angry because the budget mentioned nothing about jobs. Obviously, children won't speak, but the parents are very unhappy that in the entire budget, there's nothing about improving the quality of education and expanding the availability of education to all those who want to aspire for higher education.
But Mr. Chidambaram, to be fair, by your own definition of an interim budget, it couldn't have possibly included announcements about education, announcements about jobs. It couldn't have included any of these big moves, because you yourself said it has to be only a vote on account for the next 4 months. So aren't you being unfair by demanding that of the government as well?
Should not. Should not. No government is entitled, no government is authority to announce these schemes when its term is coming to an end. That is why a government is allowed only 5 budgets. Suppose they had announced a 5-year plan. Would you not have protested? Suppose they had announced a 5-year projection of the receipts and expenditure. Would you have accepted that? The next monstrosity will be another government will come and announce an interim budget where they say we are announcing annual financial statement projection for 5 years. I mean, these liberties cannot be taken with constitution and constitutional conventions. Some things have to be respected.
Well, I also want your point of view on the 10-year vision for the country that was shared by Piyush Goyal in this budget. He said this is the vision that the BJP has for the country. Do you believe that that should have found place in the budget? Because you yourself in the past have made, have made sort of visionary statements or made statements on your vision for the country in your budget. What is your view on that 10-year vision statement?
Well, there's nothing wrong in outlining a vision. It's really a prelude to their manifesto. There's nothing wrong in outlining a vision. It's only wrong if you start putting specific programs under each item of the vision document and start allocating measly sums like 500 crore.
Mr. Chidambaram, thank you so much for giving us time here on Mirror Now. We appreciate the candid answers that you've given us and your analysis of the budget. So for our viewers, that was P. Chidambaram, former finance minister, member of the Congress party, with his review of the budget that Piyush Goyal announced yesterday in Parliament. Stay with Mirror Now for more news and updates.